Technical analysis of the euro. So let's have a look here. And I got asked if I would cover the euro on one of these videos. And as it stands, the dollar is resurging. So, or it's probably a bit that's an exaggeration, but the dollar is having a decent retracement itself, and therefore the other currencies against the dollar are. So one of the things that I often talk about, and I was only talking about in my trading room with my community this week, was that you identify a trend and then you fade. The old analogy, the old saying is you fade the short-term direction in favor of the larger term. Okay, so what's the short-term direction at the moment? Overall is to the downside. Now, I'm looking at a daily chart. An intraday trader, you're going to say, no. On an intraday basis, you've got a larger term trend. But not so much here for the euro at the moment. So it puts it into perspective if I've come out to the weekly time frame. So when we look at the weekly time frame here, sorry, I've got lots of old trend lines and levels here. The trend is to the upside. We're just doing a retracement of that trend. We haven't even retraced to the weekly 50 as yet. We're still there's quite a distance from where price is to the 50 moving average here. So it's still quite stretched after quite a run that we've had this year. The euro dollar has had a 1700 pip run to the upside this year. And so we have to expect retracements to come in at certain times. So the question that was proposed to me is, Charlie, do you think the euro is going to still go higher at this point? And the answer is, it's not necessarily what I think, it's the analysis. So the analysis to me is still that this is a short-term downwards trend, retracement here in the euro relative to the larger trend. So we may well still, and I'm looking for the euro to come lower. I'm hoping that the euro dollar does come lower, because there might be some really nice levels lower down that we're going to be hunting and looking to trade in my community. And these are the big mega trades that set up. You just have to be patient for them. So that's what we're looking for. So let's have a look at some of those. Before we go into that, let's just go out as a reminder to the monthly time frame. So some people will look at this and say it's a downwards trend, Charlie. Overall, yes. Well, on the monthly time frame, there's an argument that it's a downwards trend, but not until you look at it and say, well, actually, is it? Well, overall, it still has been. We're lower than where we were back in 2008, of course, but actually, the breakdown that we had from the lows of 2015 to 17, we broke down here into 2022. Then we bounced, consolidated for 18 months, then had a false break here of that range to the downside. So here's our false break here, a failure pattern basically, a failure to roll over and then work our way down to new lows. And then we've come up and actually taken out then the highs of that range. So we've got a failure to come to the downside and then broke to the upside, confirming what? Actually our first higher low in this sequence, and now a higher high here as well than the last lower high. So we've actually broken the sequence in technical analysis terms of these lower highs here that were potentials if as we were starting to come down in the back end of 24 and into the beginning of 25, the market failed to come lower. Then it's turned up. So here's our first higher low now in this sequence. Moving average wise, yeah, the short term moving averages are crossing through the medium term moving averages there. The 20's crossing up through the 50. Price says it all though. So although we haven't come up to these last lower highs as yet, we have started higher low sequence and a higher high sequence. So overall, that's the basics of the analysis. I've got loads of others, including fundamental analysis as well, but that's that. So Levels then. Well, let's come back down to the weekly chart and have a look at some. So some obvious levels that may come into play somewhere closer to 112 is an obvious level. Now the highs in these, I've just highlighted 112, but actually that high was a 112.70 something, I think it was, and obviously these were a little bit higher there as well. So somewhere in the mid to upper 112s. And then if I come back down to the daily chart, we've got the daily 200, which is scooping up quite nicely under price. So if price works its way down to this daily 200, we've got this low here as well, which comes in with all this price action here. And that zone looks like a nice zone, and that's just south of 114. So essentially I'm looking at an area of interest between 114 and down into potentially the 112s. This is an area of interest as far as I'm concerned where I'd want to be a proper, positional buyer in that zone. In the meantime, euro, yep, I want it to come down. I want it to come down into that zone. So yes, because that, of course, that's where I'm getting loads of overlaps of various different pieces of analysis. I've just given a couple there, but yeah, that's a whole zone I would like to see the euro come down to. But ultimately then, if I go back to the weekly chart, is yes, I'd like to see some more downside so that I can start scooping up some something at that point with the analysis that, well, like I've already said, higher lows are in place and higher highs now when we looked at that monthly. So therefore, the assumption has to be that fading the short-term trend in favour of the longer-term trend is in play until proven otherwise. So that's what I'm going to be looking to do. So therefore, what am I looking for on the upside? Yeah, the longer-term trend. It's obvious as far as, well, therefore, new highs at some point. Imminently, not on your Nelly, but in the months ahead and probably into 26 now, I'd be looking that way. So until proven otherwise, that's the technical analysis for me. Hopefully that's been useful to you. I'll see you at the weekend.